You're joking, aren't you? It's the Teesside Chef. Today I'm making a recipe for the poorly endowed, so if you have tiny knockers or a package like Jeremy Beadle's pinky finger, this recipe proves that something tiny can be the very apex of pleasure and stimulation. I'm starting here with 530 grams of bread flour and 1.5 teaspoons of salt for these epic slider burger buns, along with a tablespoon of sugar and 10 grams exactly of dried instant yeast. Let's give that a careful stir to keep the yeast away from the salt, because the salt will kill the yeast, potentially hampering the rise. And let's be frank, we need all the tumescence and padding we can get before adding 250 millilitres of lukewarm cow juice and 100 grams of cooled melted butter. And as this is essentially an unsweetened brioche dough, we need a couple of beaten eggs in there too, stirring the whole thing together briefly afterwards to ensure that all of the flour at the bottom of the pan here is incorporated before we mix properly in a stand mixer. Now, to get the best results, you unfortunately really do need to use a stand mixer for this. The dough is very sticky, and adding more flour to make hand kneading possible would adversely affect the finished texture of our bread. That being said, we do still need to box clever for an optimal outcome here, so when the dough is smooth after an initial mixing, I like to turn the machine off and allow the dough to rest for around 10 minutes before cracking back on and continuing the mixing for around 10 to 15 minutes more. And that little resting period there just helps the flour absorb the moisture a little better, helping the dough to come together. But as eggs are different sizes and flours are different, and you might have messed up your measurements because you're a bit daft, you might still find that your dough is too sticky, and if this is the case, you can either throw the whole thing away and smash the kitchen up, or just add a little more flour, a teaspoon at a time, until the dough pulls completely away from the sides of your bowl, and after that 10 to 15 minutes of mixing can be coaxed out with the help of a little drizzle of oil. Now, after mixing this brioche dough, your bowl may look a little bit like a ceramicist's knackersack, so I like to have another clean bowl on standby that has been well oiled, in which to decant the dough prior to the first rise. Now, I'm always willing to provide at the very least a little perfunctory foreplay, so I like to kind of mash the dough and tweak its nipples a little to smooth it out before leaving for that first rise. And the first rise, where the dough needs to double in size, can take anywhere between 1 and 2 hours depending on the ambient temperature. And I covered it with cling film first, of course, to protect its modesty. And as I now, like a hormonal teenager, claw and tear clumsily at the cling film, you can see the lovely plump prize within, which should weigh around a kilo or so, 1,031 grams precisely for me, meaning each of the 24 slider buns I'm making will weigh around 42 grams, give or take. I have applied a tiny amount of oil to my work surface to prevent sticking, because I want to take 1/24th or 4.16 recurring percent of my dough and flat it down on the very lightly greased counter. And then I'm going to kind of go around stretching and then gathering and stretching and gathering and gathering and stretching until I have a semi-coherent circular shape, before then rolling into a smooth ball on the surface, using my thumb as a sort of buffer to keep a tight perimeter. And you can see how this works with a little close-up. You don't have to be too professional with these steps, but they do help to make for a more handsome and even textured finished bread. And you may think we're almost ready for the second proof once we've done this 24 times, but you would be hopelessly naive and sadly mistaken. Doing 24 buns with the stretching and the gathering and the rolling and the edge refining takes a little time, and your first effort will begin to rise immediately, while your 24th will be lagging behind like a northern school child after decades of governmental underinvestment. And to counteract this chemical anomaly, I place each dough ball on a lightly oiled piece of kitchen paper, line up a baking tray covered with another piece of kitchen paper, and then roll each dough ball again so they have an equal amount of inflation going on. And also, because I like caressing something small and round that comfortably fits in my hand, I don't really like big tits. Everybody's always going on about big tits, aren't they? Oh, look at her top bollocks, or she has a smashing rack, etc. It's rude and dehumanising, so stop it. Place your slider dough balls on the tray in a 4-5-6-5-4 formation for the most impressive results, and cover once again in oiled cling film for around 30 to 40 minutes. And again, this will depend on the ambient temperature in your new build shipbox. And once they've puffed up similar to what you see here, you can brush them with a beaten egg containing a tiny splash of milk, because once baked, that egg will give the tops of your slider burger buns a lovely deep golden hue that always impresses me, even though I know it's coming. And people with too many science degrees say that there's no such thing as free will, but it's up to you whether you want to scatter these buns with sesame seeds or nigella seeds or anything else that makes your heart sing. The oven has been preheated to a temperature of 190 degrees Celsius, 375 Fahrenheit with the fan on, and these buns should be baked at the bottom of the oven and will reach their zenith at around 14 to 16 minutes, after which they will look stunning enough to be afforded the indulgence of a close-up shot where the camera pans seductively across the golden, undulating landscape. I like to cover immediately with a damp tea towel to allow the buns to steam, keeping them soft, and once fully cooled, they can be used for their intended purpose. Namely, the demonstration that something undersized can be best, because it's the technique that's the most important thing. And don't forget, gentlemen, some women have a very shallow pelvis, so don't worry, there's somebody out there for everyone. Let's have a look inside so we can check out just how perfect these slider buns have turned out, and an even soft crumb there with a rich buttery flavour that is light and not too sweet like the brioche buns you buy in the shops, the perfect foil for what I will be bringing you very soon, and that will be a collection of tiny burgers, which is known as a burger flight. I'll have beef burgers, chicken burgers, black bean burgers, kebab burgers, falafel sliders. It'll be all happening, so make sure you join me for that one next, and I'll see you all then, hopefully, because otherwise, what's the point in me doing all this? See you then, eh? Ta-ra.